Hello everyone, welcome to Election Future. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the 2024 electoral map based on new polling averages from every single state. And I do mean every single state. This is going to be the most comprehensive election map video out there. We're going to go over the data from every race where it is available, so you can get a full and complete look at the 2024 race and where Harris and Trump stand on the path to 270 electoral votes. We'll begin on the West Coast and gradually move eastward, starting in Washington, where Kamala Harris leads by 21.5 percentage points. The state is going to be safe blue on our map. Next up, in Oregon, she leads by 5 points. This is the only poll conducted between the two nominees, and the vice president leads by a lean margin. Then, in California, the Golden State, which is Kamala Harris's home state, she's ahead by 23.7 points. So, we have another solid blue state here on the Pacific Coast. Moving on to Nevada, Kamala Harris is also defending the Silver State, a state no Democrat has lost since John Kerry in 2004. However, today, Trump actually leads in the polling average. He is ahead by 9%. Out of the 4 most recent polls from the state, none show Harris ahead, while 2 show Trump in the lead. Nevada is likely to go in favor of the former president, a state he's never won before, but it would be a huge victory for the GOP, especially after they flipped the governorship here just 2 years ago. Neighboring Arizona is also going to be incredibly competitive. It is the second of 7 swing states that will truly decide this election. Once again, Trump is in the lead. He's ahead by 1.8%. He leads in 5 out of the 6 most recent surveys. And not a single one has Harris ahead. However, this is yet another state that the vice president is defending on behalf of the Democratic Party. Joe Biden won Arizona back in 2020, but there's no way Harris will replicate his success in this election. With just 2 weeks to go, Trump is on track to win back Arizona, likely by a margin similar to his 2016 victory when he carried the state by 3.5%. Arizona is going to be lean red. Moving over to Colorado and New Mexico, we have 2 races being carried easily by double-digit margins in the last election. Colorado by nearly 14 points and New Mexico by 11. Today, the vice president leads by 11 in Colorado. Although this is from a left-leaning pollster, it's probably going to be a single-digit margin separating the vice president and the former president. In New Mexico, Harris leads by less than 8 points, which is another drop from where Democrats were 4 years ago. Both Colorado and New Mexico will likely be Democratic on our map. Trump is also doing very well in Texas, a state he carried by just over 5 points in 2020. The current polling average shows him ahead by a similar margin, but it's important to note that 4 years ago, polls had Texas going to Trump by just 1%. It was essentially an even race. Yet Trump pulled off a clear victory. This time, he's already leading by a wider margin and is poised to win Texas by at least 10 points or more. The Lone Star State will be lean red on the map, but in reality, it will probably be likely Republican once all the votes are counted. Now, moving up to the states in the middle of the country, as I mentioned, this is going to be the most comprehensive video out there. Starting with Montana, Trump leads by 17.4%, making it a solid red state. Utah is also going to be safely Republican, where Trump leads by 24 points. He is ahead by 27 in North Dakota. And in Oklahoma, he leads by 16, so all 3 of these states are going to be safe for the former president. In the remaining states where we currently do not have polling data, we'll fill them in at the end of the video. Obviously, they will also go to Trump. We do have 2 polls from Nebraska's 2nd district, showing Harris leading by an average of 10 points, so it's likely to favor the Democrats. We don't yet have any polling data from Alaska or Hawaii either, so we're just going to move straight on up to the Midwest, where the election is likely to be decided. For Harris to win, she needs to carry Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania if she has any shot at reaching 270 electoral votes. After we fill in this part of the map, you'll start to see why she is in such a difficult position. Let's start in Minnesota, where Kamala Harris leads by 4.7% in the polls. This is Governor Tim Walz's home state, and if she wasn't running with Walz and led by just under 5 points, it would be okay. Still not as strong as Biden's 7-point victory here back in 2020. However, she is running with Minnesota's sitting governor, who was re-elected by a double-digit margin in 2022. If she can't even outperform Biden in the home state of her running mate, she is in big trouble. So, on our map, Minnesota is only going to be lean blue. Before we continue, nearly 3/4 of you are not subscribed. So please subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November. Also, join my Discord server to participate in our 2024 election map prediction contest. Just go to discord.judge-elections. Returning to the map, we'll now fill in the lower Midwest, starting with Iowa, where Trump leads by 4% according to the only poll available. However, this poll is likely underestimating Trump. He is always underestimated in the state. And ultimately, it's going to be likely Republican. Trump will win Iowa by 7 to 10 points. But for now, it's only going to be lean red on our map. In Illinois, we don't have any high-quality polling. But in Indiana, Trump leads by a whopping 16.5%, so the state is going to be solid red. Meanwhile, Ohio will also go to Trump, but by a slightly smaller margin. The former president leads by 7 points, which is still an impressive performance compared to 2016 and 2020. Ohio is going to be likely Republican on our map. Now, we're left with Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, the big three. These are must-wins for Kamala Harris. They are 3 states that Democrats won in every election from 1992 until 2016, when Trump flipped all 3, defeating Hillary Clinton and winning the election. Joe Biden won all 3 of these states back in 2020. A pattern for the past 4 decades is that these 3 states always vote together. The last time they didn't all go to the same candidate was in the late 1980s. Heading into 2024, Kamala Harris was in a relatively strong position in all 3 of these states. That's why last month, people thought she was on track to win. However, her momentum was bound to fade, and now it really is starting to happen. In Wisconsin, Harris just lost her lead a week ago. This was the last state to flip from Harris to Trump in the polling average. The former president is ahead by 0.4%. Obviously, this race is still very close. It's truly neck and neck. Harris did lead over the past 2 months, but one important factor to note is that at this point in 2016, Clinton led by 6.5 points, and in 2020, Biden led by 4.6 points. The fact that Trump is even ahead is significant and nearly guarantees a victory for him in Wisconsin, which will be tilt Republican on the map. Michigan, on the other hand, is going to be lean Republican. Trump leads by 1.2%. Of the 8 most recent polls from the state, he is ahead in 6, while Harris leads in none. This is quite a remarkable performance by Trump. In 2016, Clinton led by 11 points at this stage, and in 2020, Biden led by 7.8 points. Once again, the fact that Trump is ahead in Michigan essentially guarantees his victory. Michigan was the first state to shift from blue to red after Harris entered the race in late July. She had been leading ever since, until Trump regained the lead just 2 weeks ago. If you look at how all the swing states voted in 2020, Michigan was the most liberal of the 7, and today it is not only going to be a Trump state, but is actually leaning in favor of the former president. Now, to finish up the Midwest with Pennsylvania, this is another state Harris must win. If you consider the 4 swing states we've already covered, Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Michigan, even if Harris wins all of them, Trump can still win the presidency because all he needs are Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. He knows this, which is why he has invested so much effort and time into Pennsylvania. This is where he was almost shot, and it's also where he worked at a McDonald's just a few days ago. His efforts have been paying off, as he's taken the lead in the polling average, now ahead by 0.8%. Just like its 2 Midwestern neighbors, polling in Pennsylvania has heavily overestimated Democratic support in the last 2 elections. But today, for the first time, Trump is ahead in 7 out of the 10 most recent polls from the state. Pennsylvania has always been close, but with the election looming, Trump is beginning to build a lead. On our map, Pennsylvania is going to be tilt Republican. Moving up to the Northeast, we've seen some notable changes in the last few days. New York is now solid blue, based on the polling average. Harris leads by 16.5 percentage points, marking the first time New York has been solid blue for the vice president. It's still likely to be the worst Democratic performance in the Empire State since 1988, but on all maps, it will be colored dark blue. Vermont will also be safe for Harris, as she leads by 41 points. Meanwhile, in New Hampshire, Harris is ahead by 7.8%, which is just above the 7-point threshold for the state to be considered likely. The Granite State is going to be likely blue. It has shifted away from Trump, even though he almost won it in 2016, losing to Clinton by just 0.3%. In Maine, we have another competitive race, though the polls suggest otherwise. Harris leads by 11 points, but the polls here are likely overestimating Democratic support. Still, based purely on the numbers, it is going to be likely blue. The first district will be solid for Harris, where she leads by 27.5 points, while the second district is more competitive, with Trump leading by exactly 1%. So the first district will be safe for the vice president, and the second district will be lean Trump. Down in Massachusetts, Harris leads by 29.5 points, by 16 points in Connecticut, and by 20 in Rhode Island. So these three remaining New England states are all going to be safe Democratic. While we don't have any polling from New Jersey, in Joe Biden's home state of Delaware, Harris leads by 20 points. In Maryland, she is ahead by 29 points, making both states safe blue. Now, moving south, let's look at the relatively safe Trump states. In Missouri, Trump leads by 10 points, making it likely red. In Arkansas, Trump is ahead by 15 points, so that will be solid for him. In West Virginia, he leads by a whopping 27%, and in South Carolina, Trump is ahead by 10 points, making it another likely state for him. We're now left with just 4 more competitive states: Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. Starting in Virginia, Kamala Harris leads by 6.4%. She's been boosted by 2 new outlier polls that are likely overestimating Democratic support. Joe Biden carried Virginia by a double-digit margin in 2020, but Kamala Harris will be lucky to win by even half that margin. The state is trending rightward, and Republicans won 3 major statewide races in 2021, including the governorship, the first time Republicans had won a statewide race in Virginia in over a decade. For now, based on polling data, Virginia is going to be lean Democrat, though it could definitely become more competitive. And then in North Carolina, we have swing state number 6. Only Georgia remains after this. Just like in the previous 5 swing states, Donald Trump leads in the polls, though by a narrow margin of 0.4%. North Carolina is getting surprisingly close, with Trump's lead here being the smallest of any of the 7 battlegrounds. However, Trump is still performing significantly better than he did in both 2016 and 2020. He has been ahead in the polling average throughout this entire election cycle, and neither Harris nor Biden has led in the state at any point. Trump is very likely to win North Carolina, a state he carried in both 2016 and 2020, the only swing state he won in both of the last 2 elections. Based on the current data, North Carolina is projected to be tilt red. In Georgia, Trump's surge has been incredible. If you were to guess his lead, you would probably underestimate it. As of today, he leads by 2.5 percentage points. Trump was actually behind in Georgia for over a week back in September, but now the Harris campaign is falling apart. They held a rally with Usher, but it hasn't moved the needle. Trump leads by 2.2 points. And just like in Arizona, there is no chance Harris will replicate Biden's success from 4 years ago. Biden won Georgia by the smallest margin of any state in 2020, but now it's trending Republican. Georgia is going to be lean Republican, with Trump expected to win, marking a key step in his path back to the White House. Finally, in Florida, 30 electoral votes are up for grabs. In the past, Florida has always been competitive, but that's clearly no longer the case. Trump leads by 7.8%, with 2 new polls showing even larger margins. One from the University of North Florida has Trump up by 10 points, and a New York Times poll has him ahead by a whopping 14 points. Florida went to Trump by just 3% in the last election, but this time he is likely to at least double his margin of victory. The Sunshine State is going to be likely Republican when all the votes are counted. So here is the 2024 electoral map based on polling averages from every single state. There are a few races where we don't have high-quality data, but we'll fill them in now based on historical trends. Trump is projected to win Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, the remaining districts in Nebraska, as well as Kansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Alaska. Meanwhile, Harris is expected to come out on top in Hawaii, Illinois, New Jersey, and the District of Columbia. With the map all filled in, the polls currently project a modern-day landslide victory for Donald Trump, with 312 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 226. This would mark the best performance for any Republican since 1988. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this leading up to the election in November.